Well, I've removed my purfling. The super glue is cured, of course. So I've removed this. If you should use this technique, just a quick tip, sometimes the super glue will flood the surface a little bit and it can impede pulling this out. The danger being that it may want to cause these little purflings on the sides here maybe to tear a little bit. So to avoid that problem, you just take, anytime you pull this up and it stops on you, just take a small scraper and scrape that surface away, and it will help get that layer of super glue off. You can pull it up out of there without any real trouble. So I'm ready to inlay my strips, and I've already done a few around the guitar, but I'm going to show you just a couple of different things here that may help if you're going to try and do this. Now I've sized these strips carefully, and they should drop in there quite readily, but there's no guarantee. Things happen. None of this is all that perfect. So here's an example. I'm a little bit tight right here. As I get over here, I'm still a little bit tight. So I've got, rather than just try and drive that in there, what I've got is this thing right here. This is a long, narrow bench hook. The block here hooks over my bench, and it just stays put right there. Turning over a little. And what I can do now is gauge that piece, and I'm going to hold this down with my thumb, and I'm going to take a scraper, and I'm just going to hit that a few strokes. It won't take much. You're only removing a few thousandths of an inch until I get that to fit in there. And of course, you want these to slide in and fit snugly. You don't want to have to drive them down in there, because if you have to do that, you may split your binding and purfling away a little bit. And you want to avoid that, of course. And there's a little bit of a problem there, so we're going to scrape just a little more off. And, you know, you might even see, I'm not advocating that you leave any gaps in here, but if you see a gap of 2 or 3 thousandths of an inch, there's a little problem right here. I'm just going to take a chisel. It's just a little bit of leftover super glue. Seems to be in the way. I'm going to remove that and recheck. As I said, you don't want this to wedge this thing open. Now, this is an acrylic material of sorts, and a very shallow bend like this, it'll go around nicely. I've made a pointed dowel like so, and I'm going to go around and just use the point to push that down periodically to make sure I've got that pressed to the bottom of that channel. And I'm going to continue to go around that way. Now this stuff will bend quite readily. I've got plenty of it, but I'm going to show you here. It'll bend quite readily, but it has its limits. So something needs to be done about that. One of the things that you can take comfort in is that a material like this, if you look up close, it's quite nicely variegated. So if it breaks and you just shove the joint back together, quite often you won't even see it. But I have a technique, leaving the camera once again. Terrible habit of mine, I know. Here we are, conventional heat gun. It's all you need. And I'm going to plug this in, get it ready to go. And when I want to put a piece of purfling in, that's got to go around a tight curve. The first thing I'm going to do, and I have a tight curve right over here in the waist. I'm going to move you over a little bit. When I have to do that, I don't like that piece. It doesn't look right. It's a pain to make all of these, I got to tell you. All right, so I'm going to slide that in, and if that doesn't seem to fit the way it should, I'm going to keep testing. because once I get this thing ready to go, it's got to go correctly. And it seems to fit. And I'm going to check the joint, and I'm just going to refine that. If you have to refine the joint, just a fine file is all you need and a few strokes. Now, the fun part. Testing once more. Okay, I don't think that bend is going to go, so I'm just going to take this and I'm going to heat that. And you do it quickly because it really doesn't take much. See, that's all I need. And while that's still somewhat flexible, you can push that in there. And I would have required just a little bit more heat, would have been better, but we're okay. And see, I just broke that piece off, but that's all right because I'm going to coat my next joint to that. It's still going to work. And if it's a real disaster, you can take an awl like this and you can pull it back out of there. See, look, it even broke up here. I'm going to push that right down in there, back together. Use my dowel to press it down into the channel. Make sure it's in. Now, I can see just like a couple of thousandths of an inch gap right there. You can see it. But your cyanoacrylate is going to fill that. So it's really not too much to worry about. There's a limit, of course, but it's all doable. So I'm going to grab another piece. Let's go around another curve here. All right. Testing always for a fit. A little bit too tight. I'm not happy with that. So back over here to my bench hook. Count my strokes. That was 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5.5, 6, something like that. And back over here. Test for a fit. And I am dropping in reasonably well. I think I'm going to live with that. And I'm going to test the other end just to make sure that that's going to work. Okay, I'm good. So, I'm going to heat that up just a little bit. Probably about all we're going to need. You do have to work this quickly because it loses its heat quickly as well. See, there it is. It's in. Press it down. Make sure we're at the bottom of the channel. And there it is. Now, I've got a long way to go still, and I'm not going to bore you with this, just doing this repeatedly. But there's the process. And when this is all done, I'm going to go around again, and I'm going to flood this with cyanoacrylate until this becomes one thing. Okay, I've completed the work, and I've flooded this with cyanoacrylate. You can probably see the shine around the perimeter. I'm not going to tip this, and I don't do a lot with accelerator at this point because I want to give that stuff time to soak in there and really flood every cubic inch that it needs to occupy. And I can see that it is. You see it start to get dull around the perimeter. You know it's soaking down in there. If there is excess, it'll scrape away, and I'm just going to let that set and cure overnight. And it obviously won't take that long, but it'll be nicely cured by then. So my binding has cured, and I have already scraped back the excess to bring it down flush with my top, and I'm doing that with a conventional card scraper. I'm not demonstrating that because I'm sure you know how to do that already. But after I've scraped that back, I get it as flush as I can get it. But then I sand the perimeter a little bit with 220 grit paper, because what that will do is everywhere around this border, where there might be the slightest anomaly, it will collect dust and it'll show up. It'll show up as a white or a beige color. And I've done most of this, but I'm going to bring the camera in closer so that you can see what I mean. I'm going to find all of those voids that I can, what few there are. There won't be too many. Um, but I want to fill those with cyanoacrylate, because if I don't attend to them now, as soon as I put on my first layer of sealer or I spray down a coat of lacquer, those little holes are going to show up. And I think they're a lot harder to tend to at that point than they are if you can tend to them right now. So I'll move you in closer and we'll take a look. So if you can't see these really well, I'm pointing to one here and another couple of little tiny ones here and here and over here. They are very small, but I want to tend to them anyway. So I don't want to just put super glue over that dust because I'm afraid it's going to show too much. So I'm going to take an artist brush with a fairly stiff bristle and brush those out. Now the problem is they are difficult to see. And I'll admit sometimes I have to go through this 2 or 3 times to catch all of them. But then I'm going to take some thin super glue, and I want very, very little. In fact, that was just a little bit too much maybe. But you see, I'm just touching those areas to fill those in. Any of those little spots. And if you have anything like that that's back toward the top itself, especially if it's spruce, take a rag and go over that with a little bit of sealer and let that cure first so that your cyanoacrylate doesn't hit the raw spruce and discolor it. Well, I finished scraping the binding back and filling all of those voids that I showed you in the last segment. And I've hand sanded a little bit to bring things nicely flush. And then I took a razor blade scraper and went around this and just refined that ever so slightly so that it would bring up the color and the little gleam in it that you see there. And when I scrape this back, I also want to scrape, pardon my dirty fingers here, I want to scrape and pull this a little bit of a slight angle here. Only a few thousandths of an inch. You're going to round this off anyway before you finish refining all of your binding work. So to pull that back just a little bit to start the rounding seems appropriate. But you can see that it looks pretty clean. Now other anomalies might show up when I get a first coat of lacquer down. I hope not, but if they do, I'm just going to have to deal with them. But this is just to show you that you can get really good results, and we're still in the white with the guitar, so you can really do a good job of this if you take your time. Well, I want to thank you so much for watching this video series. I want to take this opportunity to remind my subscribers and consistent viewers, but also to introduce new viewers that might be watching, that I am not subsidized by anyone for any reason for anything that I do or say on YouTube. At the same time, I want to encourage anyone to put a like on the videos and subscribe to my channel, because I just so much enjoy finding out how many people subscribe, how many followers there happen to be. It's just something that I really like to do. So at any rate, thanks again for watching, and I'll be back when I have something that I think is worthwhile content. Thanks again.